My so-called best friend used my childhood trauma against me, made a fake account to ruin my name, and falsely accused my boyfriend. So we exposed her lies and let her destroy herself. Just a few weeks ago, a friend of mine accused me of being a kitty fiddler. My friend Tasha has always been a bit unpredictable. Once, while we were on a stroll, a charming man smiled at me, and she literally began barking like a dog, shouting "predator" repeatedly until he practically fled. Another time, I visited her on her first day working at the local Starbucks. When a customer in front of me greeted her, she shrieked, "Do not harass me with your eye contact," before spitting into his coffee. And believe me, it was always incredibly mortifying. But overall, I considered Tasha a decent person who would eventually mature beyond these behaviors. Spoiler alert, she never did. A few weeks later, her parents cut off her financial support after she tampered with the brakes of her 17-year-old brother's car. This happened because she discovered a condom in his room, which, to her, signified he was exploiting young, impressionable girls. Since they were her sole source of income and she was incapable of holding down a job, she was left with nothing. So, I did what any sensible 18-year-old would do. I offered to cover her tuition, with the approval of my exceptionally generous parents. I informed her of this over dinner. She didn't embrace me, smile, or even offer a thank you. "That's cool," was her only response before she resumed eating. I felt a little wounded, as it had taken considerable persuasion with my parents, but I didn't want her to feel my affection was conditional, so I simply told her it was no trouble. Fortunately, when I returned home that evening, I received a text from her. I find it difficult to express appreciation sometimes, but I truly value it. That brought a smile to my face, and that's when I realized Tasha was inherently kind-hearted, just a bit misunderstood and struggling with mental illness. So, we remained close friends until 2 months later, when I met my boyfriend, Zach. I knew Tasha would insist on meeting him, so I thoroughly briefed him on her personality and how best to interact with her. I knew things were going well when we were all together, and he transformed from his usual talkative, amiable self to completely quiet and reserved. The contrast was so stark, I had to suppress a giggle. But I suppose Tasha's fury is inevitable, because that's when I removed my sweater. "You are so beautiful," Zach remarked with a flirtatious grin. That's when Tasha narrowed her gaze at him. Zach immediately clamped his mouth shut, swallowing, his face reddening as if caught in a transgression. "This is what happens when you shave your arms," she declared. I raised an eyebrow, genuinely bewildered by what on earth she was referring to. "You know, Lily," she pivoted her entire body towards me. I didn't want to say anything, but now I must. "You've been brainwashed by the patriarchy, and now you're supporting a kitty fiddler." This wasn't my first encounter with Tasha and her eccentricities, so I simply smiled and nodded, hoping she would soon cease. Thankfully, she did, and for the remainder of the day, neither Zach nor I uttered a word. We simply allowed her to do all the talking. I was honestly planning to disregard her little remark. I was lying beside Zach at 3 in the morning when she called me. "Lily, I need to tell you something." Her voice was trembling, hysterical. I honestly believed someone had passed away. "The only reason Zach likes you is because you resemble a child, and you are entirely responsible for his kitty fiddling behavior because you shave and refuse to gain weight." She was on speakerphone, and Zach's face contorted in disbelief. "Tasha, I'm really tired. Can we discuss this later?" "The only reason I'm telling you this is because I love you," she interrupted, clearly relishing the sound of her own voice. "Please think critically for once. Your boyfriend is a predator, and you're a victim." By this point, I was ready to hang up and never speak to her again. But her call was so bizarrely entertaining that I decided to let her continue. "You know why you shave, right? It's because being hairless makes you feel secure. It makes you feel like that moment when you were a child and your neighbor stole your innocence didn't happen. But that's exactly what predators seek." Suddenly, the room was spinning. Zach seized my phone, ended the call, and immediately held me as I wept uncontrollably in his embrace. He said nothing, but I just knew he wasn't judging me. When my tears finally subsided, he whispered into my ear that I would be safe with him, and I ended up simply drifting off to sleep, drooling in his lap. I didn't know it at the time, but Zach was about to make Tasha pay, and my life was about to change forever. The next morning, I awoke feeling utterly depleted. Zach had prepared breakfast and was sitting on the edge of the bed with a tray of pancakes. I tried to smile, but the events of the previous night came flooding back. Tasha had somehow managed to bring up the one thing I never discussed, the incident with my neighbor when I was 9. I had never told anyone about it, not even my parents. Somehow Tasha knew, and she had used it as a weapon. "We need to talk about last night," Zach said gently, setting the tray down. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without crying again. "What Tasha said, is it true about your neighbor?" I nodded again, tears already forming. Zach took my hand and squeezed it. I'm so sorry that happened to you. But you know what she said about me isn't true, right? I'm with you because I love you, not because of how you look. I know. I whispered, and I did know. Zach had always been respectful and kind. The idea that he was some kind of predator was absurd. I don't know how she knew about my neighbor. I never told her. I paused, reflecting. Actually, I did mention something once years ago. We were sharing secrets at a sleepover, and I hinted at it without giving details. I never brought it up again, and she never asked. I didn't think she even remembered. Zach's expression darkened. She's manipulative and dangerous, Lily. You need to cut her off completely. I knew he was right, but it wasn't that simple. I'm paying her tuition. I can't just stop. Actually, you can. Your parents are paying her tuition because you asked them to. You can ask them to stop. He had a point. I reached for my phone to call my parents, but there were already 27 missed calls and 15 text messages from Tasha. I didn't read them. Instead, I called my mom and explained the situation. She was horrified and immediately agreed to cease the payments. My dad joined the call too and said they never truly liked Tasha anyway, but had gone along with it because they trusted my judgment. I felt relieved after speaking with my parents, but also apprehensive about Tasha's reaction. I decided to text her rather than call. After what you said last night, I don't think we can be friends anymore. My parents will not be continuing to pay your tuition. Her response arrived instantly. You're choosing a predator over me? Fine, but don't come crying to me when he shows his true colors. And good luck explaining to everyone at school why you're supporting a kitty fiddler. I showed the text to Zach, who looked more enraged than I'd ever seen him. She's threatening to spread rumors about me. That's defamation. I could sue her. Let's just ignore her, I suggested. She'll move on to someone else eventually. But as the next few days demonstrated, Tasha had no intention of moving on. I arrived at class on Monday morning feeling utterly miserable. I'd barely slept all weekend, constantly checking my phone to see what new, dreadful thing Tasha might be saying about me or Zach. My eyes were swollen and aching, and the fluorescent lights of the university hallway seemed to pierce right through my skull. I walked into the lecture hall for my psychology class and immediately noticed people glancing at me and whispering. Great. Tasha had already begun circulating rumors. I slipped into a seat near the back, attempting to be inconspicuous. The blue plastic chair was uncomfortable, but at least I could conceal myself behind the students in front of me. My friend Morgan sat down beside me, looking concerned. Her curly brown hair was gathered in a messy bun, and she smelled faintly of coffee. Hey, you okay? There's some strange stuff circulating about Zach, she whispered. I simply nodded, not wanting to delve into it right before class. The professor entered and began the lecture, but I couldn't concentrate at all. The words about cognitive biases and heuristics drifted past me without registering. My phone kept vibrating in my pocket. More texts from Tasha, probably. After class, Morgan drew me aside in the hallway, her expression serious. Look, I know it's probably not true, but Tasha is telling everyone that Zach is interested in underage girls and that you're enabling him. She's saying you shave all your body hair to look like a child for him. I felt my face burning with embarrassment and fury. The hallway suddenly felt too crowded, too warm. That's completely absurd. Zach is normal, and I shave because I just do. Most women shave. It has nothing to do with looking like a child. Morgan looked relieved. That's what I figured. Tasha's always been a bit much, but this is next level insane. Don't worry, most people aren't believing it. Most people. I repeated, feeling nauseous. The knot in my stomach tightened. Morgan looked uneasy, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. Well, she's really persuasive when she gets going, and she's telling people you're a victim who's been manipulated, so some people are concerned about you. I thanked Morgan for the warning and proceeded to my next class, navigating through the crowded hallway. On the way, I finally checked my phone. 15 new texts from Tasha, each one more deranged than the last. The final one sent a chill down my spine. I'm going to your parents' house tonight to tell them everything about Zach. They deserve to know what kind of monster their daughter is dating. I immediately called my mom, ducking into a quiet corner by the water fountain. She answered on the second ring. Mom, Tasha might try to come over tonight. Please don't let her in. She's saying horrible things about Zach and me. My mom sounded confused. What kind of things, honey? I couldn't bring myself to repeat the accusations. The thought of uttering those words to my mother made me cringe. Just really bad stuff. None of it's true. She's angry because we stopped paying her tuition. Don't worry, we won't let her in, my mom assured me. Your father never liked her anyway. He always said there was something off about her. I felt a little better after speaking with my mom, but my relief was short-lived. When I walked into the campus coffee shop for lunch, the aroma of espresso and baked goods, usually comforting, now seemed oppressive. I spotted Tasha sitting with a group of our mutual friends. Her long blonde hair was perfectly styled as always, but there was a wild, unsettling glint in her eyes that I could discern even from the doorway. As soon as she saw me, she stood up and pointed. "There she is, the enabler," she shouted, loud enough for the entire coffee shop to hear. The chatter ceased instantly. Everyone turned to stare at me. I froze, unsure what to do, feeling like a deer caught in headlights. One of our friends, Alex, looked mortified and tried to pull Tasha back down into her seat. Her cheeks were flushed with vicarious embarrassment. "Tasha, come on, this isn't the place." But Tasha was just getting started. She shook off Alex's hand, her voice rising even louder. "You all need to know what kind of person Lily really is. She's dating a predator who likes her because she looks like a child." I couldn't tolerate it anymore. I spun around and fled the coffee shop, tears streaming down my face. The cool autumn air hit my hot cheeks as I pushed through the door. I didn't stop running until I reached Zach's apartment, my lungs burning and legs aching. He wasn't home, so I simply sat outside his door, trying to compose myself. The concrete step felt cold through my jeans, but I barely noticed. About 20 minutes later, Zach arrived, looking worried. His dark hair was windswept, and he was slightly out of breath, as if he'd hurried over. "Lily, what happened? I got your texts but couldn't respond during my exam." I hadn't even realized I'd texted him. I checked my phone and saw that I'd sent a jumbled message about Tasha and the coffee shop. I explained what had transpired, and Zach's face darkened with anger. His normally warm brown eyes hardened. "This has gone too far," he stated, unlocking his door and ushering me inside. The familiar scent of his apartment, a blend of laundry detergent and the sandalwood candle I'd given him, was instantly soothing. "She's actively trying to ruin our lives now." I collapsed onto his couch, feeling utterly drained. The soft blue fabric enveloped me as I sank down. What are we supposed to do? If we fight back, it just makes us look guilty. Zach sat down beside me and placed his arm around my shoulders. His touch was warm and reassuring. "We need to document everything she's doing. Save all the texts, record any interactions if possible. If she keeps this up, we might need to get a restraining order." The thought of things escalating to that level made me feel ill, but I nodded. Zach was right. This wasn't just Tasha being Tasha anymore. This was harassment. For the next week, I tried to keep a low profile and avoid Tasha as much as possible. It wasn't easy. She seemed to be everywhere, always ready with a new accusation or insult. She'd wait outside my classes, follow me to the library, and even showed up at the restaurant where I worked part-time. The constant vigilance was exhausting. I found myself scanning every room I entered, my heart rate spiking whenever I saw someone with blonde hair. My boss, Thomas, had to ask her to leave after she started yelling about predator enablers in the middle of the dinner rush. The clatter of silverware and murmur of conversation had stopped completely as all eyes turned to our confrontation. I was mortified, but Thomas was surprisingly understanding. "Look, I don't know what's going on between you two," he said after Tasha had departed, his salt and pepper beard moving as he spoke. "But if she returns and causes trouble again, I'm calling the police." I thanked him and returned to work, feeling slightly better knowing that at least some people were on my side. My hands trembled slightly as I carried plates to my tables, but I managed to complete the rest of my shift. The next day, I was walking to class when I spotted Tasha talking to a campus security officer. She was gesturing wildly and pointing in my direction. Her face was animated, eyes wide, as she seemed to be recounting a dramatic story. The officer looked skeptical but was taking notes. I quickened my pace, not wanting to become entangled in whatever new drama Tasha was fabricating. Later that day, I received a call from the campus security office, requesting me to come in for a meeting. My heart sank. What had Tasha told them? The fear of being officially accused of something was overwhelming. I called Zach immediately, and he offered to accompany me for support. We went to the security office together, both of us nervous wrecks. The office was small and sterile, with motivational posters on the walls that felt jarringly out of place given my anxiety. The officer who met with us, Officer Rodriguez, was professional but clearly uncomfortable. His uniform was crisp, but his expression was pained. "Miss Chun, we received a report from another student expressing concern about your relationship with Mr. Evans here. Normally, we wouldn't get involved in personal matters, but the allegations were serious enough that we felt we needed to follow up." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "Let me guess, Tasha Williams made the report?" Officer Rodriguez nodded. "I can't confirm the identity of the reporting party, but the allegations involve claims that Mr. Evans is inappropriately interested in minors and that your relationship has concerning elements." Zach spoke up, his voice steady despite the absurdity of the situation. I could feel the tension in his body next to mine. "Officer, these allegations are completely false. Tasha Williams has been harassing both of us for weeks because Lily stopped paying her tuition. We have documentation of her behavior if you'd like to see it. I pulled out my phone and showed Officer Rodriguez some of the texts Tasha had sent me. His eyebrows rose as he scrolled through them, his professional demeanor slipping slightly as he read the increasingly unhinged messages. "I see," he said finally. "This appears to be a personal dispute rather than a legitimate safety concern. I'll make a note in the report, but no further action will be taken at this time." We thanked him and left, both feeling relieved but also violated. The fact that we'd had to defend ourselves against such disgusting accusations was infuriating. "This has to stop," I declared as we walked back to Zach's apartment. The autumn leaves crunched under our feet, the sound oddly satisfying given my anger. "She's trying to ruin our lives." Zach nodded grimly. "I think it's time to consider that restraining order." The next day, we went to the county courthouse to obtain information about filing for a restraining order. The building was imposing, all marble and echoing hallways. The clerk provided us with the forms and explained the process. We would need to document Tasha's harassment and demonstrate that it was causing us significant distress. Then a judge would decide whether to grant the order. As we were leaving the courthouse, I spotted a familiar figure across the street. Tasha was observing us, her expression unreadable from this distance. She was wearing a red coat that stood out vividly against the gray buildings. When she realized I'd noticed her, she didn't flee or pretend she wasn't spying. Instead, she smiled and waved, as if we were old friends who had simply chanced upon each other. The gesture sent shivers down my spine. There was something profoundly wrong with her, and it was becoming clearer by the day. That night, I received a call from my mom. She sounded distressed. "Lily, Tasha came by the house today. Your father told her to leave, but she refused. She started screaming about Zach being a predator and you being in danger. We had to threaten to call the police before she would depart." I felt a surge of panic. "Are you and Dad okay? Did she do anything?" "We're fine, just shaken up. But honey, she left something in our mailbox after she left. It's disturbing." My mom explained that Tasha had left a manila envelope containing printed screenshots of conversations that were supposedly between Zach and underage girls. The conversations were graphic and unsettling. "Mom, those are fake," I said immediately, my voice rising with urgency. "Zach would never say those things. Tasha must have created them somehow." My mom sounded relieved. "That's what your father and I thought. They didn't sound like the Zach we've met. But Lily, this girl is dangerous. You need to be careful." After hanging up with my mom, I called Zach and told him about the fabricated screenshots. He was horrified. "She's trying to frame me," he said, his voice trembling with anger. "This goes beyond harassment. This is criminal." We decided to go to the police the next day to report Tasha's escalating behavior. But before we could, things got even worse. I awoke to a deluge of notifications on my phone. Someone had created a fake Instagram account in my name, with a profile picture of me and a bio that read, "I support predators because I am one. DM for child content." I felt physically ill as I scrolled through the account. There were several posts, all with captions making it seem like I was involved in horrific activities. Most of the posts were just random photos from my real Instagram, but with disturbing captions added. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I immediately reported the account and then called Zach, sobbing. He came over right away, and we spent the morning contacting Instagram, trying to get the fake account removed. It took hours, but finally the account disappeared. Just as we were starting to feel a tiny bit better, my phone rang. It was my boss, Thomas. "Lily, I hate to do this over the phone, but I need to let you go," he said, sounding genuinely regretful. "We've received dozens of calls today from people claiming you're involved in, well, some very serious and illicit activities. I know it's probably not true, but the restaurant can't handle this kind of controversy." I was too stunned to argue. After hanging up, I told Zach what had happened. His face hardened with resolve. "That's it. We're going to the police right now." At the police station, we spoke with a detective named Casey Williams, no relation to Tasha, thankfully. She was a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. We showed her all the evidence we had, the texts, the fake Instagram account, the fabricated screenshots, and explained about the harassment at school and my job. Detective Williams took it all seriously. "This is definitely harassment, possibly stalking, and the fake screenshots and social media account could constitute defamation and identity theft. We'll need to investigate further, but you've got enough here to file for that restraining order." We left the police station feeling slightly better. At least someone in authority was taking us seriously now. The next day, we filed the paperwork for a temporary restraining order. The judge granted it based on the evidence we provided, which meant Tasha would have to stay at least 100 yards away from both of us until the hearing for a permanent order. When the sheriff served Tasha with the order, She apparently had a complete meltdown. According to the report, she screamed that we were trying to silence her because she knew the truth about us. For a few days, things were quiet. The restraining order seemed to be effective. I was still dealing with whispers and stares on campus, but at least Tasha wasn't actively harassing me anymore. Then one evening, I came home to find my apartment door slightly ajar, my heart pounding. I called Zach and then the police. Zach arrived first, and we waited outside until 2 officers showed up. They cleared the apartment and confirmed that someone had broken in. My laptop was missing, and my bedroom had been ransacked. Clothes were strewn everywhere, and someone had written "enabler" in lipstick on my mirror. The bright red letters were smeared and angry looking against the glass. There was no doubt in my mind who had done it. The officers took a report and collected evidence, including fingerprints. They advised me to stay somewhere else for the night, so I went to Zach's place. The next morning, Detective Williams called to inform me that they had found Tasha's fingerprints in my apartment. They were going to arrest her for breaking and entering, theft, vandalism, and violating the restraining order. I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. On one hand, Tasha would finally face consequences for her actions. On the other hand, I worried that this would only make her more determined to expose us. My fears were confirmed when later that day, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. It was Tasha, writing from someone else's account. "You think you've won, but you haven't. I have Lily's laptop now, and I'm going to find all the evidence I need to prove what you two really are. By the time I'm done, everyone will know the truth." I forwarded the email to Detective Williams, who assured me they were doing everything they could to locate Tasha. She had apparently not returned to her apartment after being released on bail. For the next few days, I flinched at every sound and constantly looked over my shoulder. Zach insisted on staying with me at all times, even escorting me to and from classes. We were both exhausted and stressed, but at least we had each other. Then, about a week after the break-in, I received another email from Tasha. "I found nothing on your laptop. No evidence. But that doesn't mean you're innocent. It just means you're careful. Meet me at the old boathouse by the lake tomorrow at 7 p.m. if you want your laptop back. Come alone, or I'll destroy it." I showed the email to Zach, who immediately said, "You're not going. It's too dangerous." I knew he was right, but I also needed my laptop back. It had all my coursework and personal files on it. What if we tell Detective Williams? Maybe the police could be there, hiding. Zach didn't like the idea, but he agreed it was better than me going alone or not going at all. We contacted Detective Williams, who said she would arrange for officers to be positioned around the boathouse, out of sight. The next evening, I arrived at the boathouse at exactly 7 p.m. It was already getting dark, and the old wooden structure looked eerie in the fading light. The lake was still, reflecting the darkening sky like a mirror. I took a deep breath and walked inside. Tasha was sitting on a bench, my laptop on her lap. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, and her eyes had a wild, unfocused look. The confident, composed girl I had known was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. "You came," she said, sounding almost surprised. "I wasn't sure you would. I just want my laptop back, Tasha," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Then I'll leave, and we never have to see each other again." She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that echoed in the empty boathouse. "It's not that simple, Lily. You chose him over me after everything I've done for you." I was confused. "What have you done for me? I'm the one who is paying your tuition. I've protected you," she shouted, suddenly angry. Her voice bounced off the wooden walls. "I've always protected you from men like Zach. Men who only want one thing. Men who see your vulnerability and exploit it." I took a step back, startled by her outburst. "Zach isn't like that. He's a good person who cares about me." Tasha's expression darkened. "That's what they all say? That's what my father said about my uncle right before he started coming into my room at night." Suddenly, a lot of things about Tasha made more sense. Her extreme reactions to men, her obsession with predators, her need to protect me. She had been projecting her own trauma onto everyone around her. "Tasha, I'm sorry that happened to you," I said gently. "But Zach isn't your uncle, and I'm not you." For a moment, I thought I was getting through to her. Her expression softened slightly, and she looked down at the laptop. Then, without warning, she stood up and hurled it against the wall. It shattered, pieces of plastic and metal flying everywhere. The crash was deafening in the quiet boathouse. "If I can't make you see the truth, then no one can have you," she screamed, lunging toward me with her hands outstretched. Before she could reach me, the boathouse door burst open, and Detective Williams rushed in, followed by 2 uniformed officers. They quickly restrained Tasha, who was still screaming incoherently about protecting me and exposing Zach. As they led her away, Detective Williams explained that they had been watching and listening the whole time. They had intervened as soon as Tasha became violent. She needs help, I said, watching as they put her in the back of a police car. The red and blue lights flashed across the lake, creating an eerie, surreal scene. Serious psychological help. Detective Williams nodded. Based on what we heard tonight and her previous behavior, the judge will likely order a psychological evaluation. She'll get the help she needs. I walked back to where Zach was waiting just beyond the police perimeter. He wrapped me in a tight hug, and I finally allowed myself to cry. For the friendship I had lost, for the trauma Tasha had clearly experienced, and for the weeks of torment she had put us through. As we stood there by the lake, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and relief. It was over, but the scars would remain for a long time to come. I walked back to Zach's car, my legs feeling like jelly. The gravel crunched under my feet as I tried to process everything that had just happened. Zach opened the passenger door for me, and I practically collapsed into the seat. My hands were still trembling, and I could feel tears threatening to spill over again. "You okay?" Zach asked, starting the car. The engine hummed to life, a comforting, normal sound after all the craziness. I nodded, not trusting my voice. We drove in silence for a while, the streetlights casting strange shadows across the dashboard. I kept replaying Tasha's words in my head. All this time, she'd been projecting her own trauma onto everyone around her. It didn't excuse what she did, but it made it make more sense. "What happens now?" I finally asked as we pulled into Zach's apartment complex. The familiar sight of the brick building was oddly comforting. Detective Williams said they're charging her with breaking and entering, destruction of property, violating the restraining order, and attempted assault, Zach replied, parking the car. "With her history and what happened tonight, she'll probably be held for psychiatric evaluation." We went inside, and I immediately flopped onto his couch, physically and emotionally drained. Zach made us both some tea, which was his go-to comfort thing. The warm mug felt good in my hands, grounding me back to reality. "I lost all my coursework," I said, suddenly remembering my shattered laptop. "All my essays, my thesis notes, everything." "We'll figure it out," Zach assured me. "Your professors will understand once they know what happened." I nodded, sipping my tea. It was strange, but despite everything, I felt a tiny bit sorry for Tasha. Not enough to forgive her, but enough to hope she'd get the help she obviously needed. The next morning, I awoke to my phone ringing. It was Detective Williams, calling to update me. She told me Tasha had been taken to the psychiatric ward of the local hospital for evaluation. The doctors had placed her on a 72-hour hold, which could be extended if necessary. "What about school?" I asked, rubbing sleep from my eyes. "Will I still have to see her there?" "The university has been informed of the situation," Detective Williams explained. "They're implementing their own no-contact order, and from what I understand, they're considering disciplinary action against Miss Williams for harassment." That was a relief. I thanked her and hung up, then filled Zach in on the conversation. He was in the kitchen making breakfast, the scent of bacon filling the apartment. "So, she's getting help, and you're protected at school," he summarized, flipping a pancake. "That's good news." I nodded, accepting the plate he handed me. I still need to deal with my professors about all my lost work, though. After breakfast, I emailed all my professors, explaining the situation. Most of them responded quickly with surprising understanding. My psychology professor even offered to give me an extension on all my assignments for the rest of the semester. My English professor said she still had copies of my earlier drafts that she could send me. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. The next few days were strangely quiet. No drama, no Tasha, no harassment, just normal college life. I kept expecting something to happen, flinching whenever my phone buzzed or someone knocked on the door. Zach noticed and tried to help me relax, but it was hard to shake the feeling that this wasn't truly over. A week after the break-in, I received another call from Detective Williams. My heart immediately started racing, thinking Tasha had done something else. "Miss Chun, I wanted to let you know that Miss Williams will be transferred to a long-term psychiatric facility tomorrow," she said. "The doctors have diagnosed her with several conditions that require intensive treatment. She'll likely be there for at least a few months." I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Will she get better? "With proper treatment, there's a good chance she'll learn to manage her conditions," Detective Williams replied. "But recovery takes time." After hanging up, I sat on my bed for a long time, just thinking. Tasha had been my friend for years. Despite all her quirks and outbursts, I genuinely cared about her, and now she was in a psychiatric facility, and I was partly responsible for putting her there. It was the right thing to do, but it still felt strange. Zach came over that evening with takeout from my favorite Thai place. The aroma of pad Thai and green curry filled my tiny apartment as we arranged dinner on my coffee table. I told him about Tasha's transfer to the psychiatric facility. "That's good," he said, opening containers. She needs serious help, and now she'll get it. I nodded, picking at my food. I know. It's just weird to think about. Like, a month ago we were friends, and now she's in a mental hospital, and I have a restraining order against her. Zach reached over and squeezed my hand. You did everything you could for her, Lily. You paid her tuition. You put up with her behavior for years. This isn't your fault. I knew he was right, but it was still hard to accept. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, the TV playing some random cooking show in the background. The next day, I decided to visit my parents. I hadn't seen them since all this began, and I needed some family time. Their house was about an hour from campus, a cozy suburban place with a large backyard. As soon as I walked in, my mom wrapped me in a hug that smelled like her perfume and home-cooked food. We've been so worried, she said, leading me to the kitchen. My dad was there, making coffee. He gave me a side hug, his familiar aftershave comforting. How are you holding up, kiddo? He asked, pouring me a cup. I shrugged, sitting at the kitchen island. Better, I guess. Tasha is getting help now, so that's good. My parents exchanged a look I couldn't quite interpret. My mom sat next to me, her face serious. Lily, there's something we need to tell you, she said. After Tasha left those fake screenshots here, your father and I were worried about what else she might do, so we contacted her parents. I nearly choked on my coffee. You what? What? We thought they should know what was happening, my dad explained. They were shocked, but not entirely surprised. Apparently, Tasha has had psychological issues since childhood. They told us some things that, well, that explained a lot about her behavior. My mom nodded. They said Tasha was molested by her uncle when she was young. He went to prison for it, but Tasha never received proper therapy. They tried, but she refused to talk about it. As she got older, she became increasingly paranoid about men and predators. This confirmed what Tasha had said at the boathouse. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, despite everything she'd put me through. There's more, my dad continued. After we told them about the fake screenshots and the things she was saying about Zach, they admitted that Tasha has done this before. In elementary school, she accused a teacher of inappropriate behavior. There was an investigation, but they found no evidence. The teacher ended up moving to another district because of the rumors. I sat back, processing this information. So this is like a pattern for her? My parents nodded. My mom reached for my hand. Her parents feel terrible about everything she's done to you. They want to help however they can. What does that mean? I asked, confused. For starters, they're going to replace your laptop, my dad said. They insisted, and they're covering all of Tasha's treatment costs, so you don't have to worry about her tuition anymore. I didn't know how to feel about this. On one hand, it was kind of them to replace my laptop. On the other hand, it felt strange accepting anything from Tasha's family after everything that had happened. You don't have to decide right now, my mom said, seeing my hesitation. Just think about it. I spent the rest of the day with my parents, trying to focus on normal family activities instead of the Tasha situation. We watched a movie, had dinner, and for a few hours, I almost forgot about everything that had happened. When I returned to my apartment that night, there was a package waiting for me. It was a brand new laptop, much nicer than my old one, with a note from Tasha's parents apologizing for their daughter's actions. I set it up on my desk, feeling conflicted but grateful. Over the next few weeks, life slowly returned to normal. The rumors at school gradually subsided as people found new drama to focus on. My professors were understanding about my missing assignments, and I was able to catch up without too much stress. Zach and I were doing great, spending most of our free time together. 1 month after the boathouse incident, I received a letter from the psychiatric facility where Tasha was staying. My first instinct was to discard it unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a handwritten note from Tasha. Lily, I'm writing this as part of my therapy. I'm supposed to make amends to people I've hurt. I know saying sorry isn't enough for what I did to you and Zach. I was wrong. The doctors here say I have several conditions that affected my thinking and behavior. I'm on medication now and doing intensive therapy. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I understand now how wrong I was. Tasha. I showed the letter to Zach when he came over that evening. He read it carefully, his expression thoughtful. Do you think she means it? He asked, handing it back to me. I shrugged. Maybe. The doctors wouldn't have let her send it if they thought she was still delusional. But it doesn't really change anything. No, it doesn't, Zach agreed. But it's good that she's getting help. I folded the letter and put it away. I had no intention of responding or re-establishing contact with Tasha. Some bridges cannot be rebuilt, and that was acceptable. A week later, I ran into Alex, one of our mutual friends, at the campus coffee shop. She waved me over to her table, looking slightly awkward. Hey, I just wanted to say I'm sorry about everything that happened with Tasha, she said as I sat down. We all should have seen how unhinged she was getting. I shrugged, stirring my coffee. It's not your fault. She was good at concealing it when she wanted to. Alex nodded. Some of us visited her at the facility last weekend. She seems different, calmer. She told us she's been diagnosed with PTSD, borderline personality disorder, and some kind of delusional disorder. She's on a bunch of medications now. That's good, I said, meaning it. Despite everything, I didn't wish Tasha ill. I just wanted her to get better and stay far away from me and Zach. She asked about you. Alex continued, looking uncomfortable. I told her you were doing fine and that you and Zach were still together. She just nodded and changed the subject. I appreciated that Alex hadn't given Tasha any specific information about me. The last thing I needed was for her to fixate on me again, even from inside a psychiatric facility. As the semester came to an end, I found myself reflecting on everything that had transpired. The entire experience with Tasha had been terrifying and draining, but in a strange way, it had also made me stronger. I'd advocated for myself and Zach, confronted my fears, and emerged on the other side. Zach and I celebrated the end of finals by going out to dinner at a nice restaurant downtown. As we were waiting for dessert, he reached across the table and took my hand. I'm really proud of you, you know, he said, his eyes warm. After everything that happened with Tasha, a lot of people would have fallen apart, but you didn't. I smiled, squeezing his hand. I had help. You, my parents, even Detective Williams. Still, he insisted, you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Maybe he was right. A year ago, I probably would have let Tasha walk all over me, making excuses for her behavior and trying to maintain peace. But now I understood that some friendships, no matter how long they've endured, aren't worth the damage they inflict. As we left the restaurant, walking hand in hand under the stars, I felt genuinely happy for the first time in months. Tasha was receiving the help she needed, I was free from her manipulation, and I had learned an important lesson about standing up for myself. Life wasn't perfect, but it was pretty great.